The next one, and probably one of the most important reasons to do virtual events, is it's low cost to no cost. We put on these events in person all the time, and I mean, some of the events have been anywhere from say $20,000 to over $100,000 to put on a 3-day live event, right? You've got to go through all the planning. You've got to meet with the venue. You've got to have AV set up. You've got to know the flow that every person's going to go through. Not to mention, you got to negotiate with a venue like a hotel, and they are hard to negotiate with and hard to manage and work with at times. In fact, we even have a joke around here. We call it plus plus. If you've done a live event, you know what I'm talking about. They will give you a budget, say $10,000, and then they forget to tell you that it's plus tax and plus service charge. And next thing you know, you're spending 15 when you thought you were spending 10. Man, I used to hate virtual events. Like, my team was pushing me. We do these big live events, we do these big conventions, all this stuff, and these workshops. We should switch and do some virtual events. I was like, no, I don't like it, because I felt that it would make me disconnected to the audience. So let me tell you why we now do virtual events. One of the benefits to doing virtual events, and this really happened last year during COVID quarantine, we had a big national event planned and we had to pivot super fast because, of course, with COVID, the hotel would not let us hold the event. So we had to change and we had to go to a virtual summit. And the cool part about virtual is if you have an idea, you can get this from idea to launch to income very quickly, right? So in 15 days, we were able to put together a 5-day event that we had speakers through most of the day, and it was all done through Zoom, all done virtual. In fact, all of it was pre-recorded as well. So the cool part about a virtual event is it allows you to implement quickly, to get it launched and get something out there right away. One of the next benefits of a virtual event is it allows you to test an idea. So let's say you have a concept, a new product, a new course, a new program, something that you want to do. A virtual event allows you to test it without putting too much into time, money, marketing, and effort, right? Just getting it in front of an audience. Even if 10 people show up and you present this idea, this concept, you're going to get feedback to know if it's something you should pursue at a higher level. That's why virtual events are so amazing. Allows you to launch quickly and test out your idea. Also, in a previous video I did, I talked about how to become a speaker, and a virtual event is one of the best ways to practice a presentation. If you've created this new presentation, before you get on a stage or get out to a live venue to deliver it, a virtual event is like seriously one of the best ways to hone your skills, to practice, to know if you're a great presenter. Because in some ways, it's a little bit harder to present virtually than it is in person, because you're not going to have the energy of a live in-person audience. So if you can master your presentation virtually, you're going to be able to do 10 times better when you have a live audience that's going to give you the feedback, that's going to laugh at your jokes, that's going to go with you on a story, and they're going to feel that. So doing a virtual event is an amazing way to practice the presentation you've laid out. The next one, and probably one of the most important reasons to do virtual events, is it's low cost to no cost. We put on these events in person all the time, and I mean, some of the events have been anywhere from say $20,000 to over $100,000 to put on a 3-day live event, right? You've got to go through all the planning. You've got to meet with the venue. You've got to have AV set up. You've got to know the flow that every person's going to go through. Not to mention, you got to negotiate with a venue like a hotel, and they are hard to negotiate with and hard to manage and work with at times. In fact, we even have a joke around here. We call it plus plus. If you've done a live event, you know what I'm talking about. They will give you a budget, say $10,000, and then they forget to tell you that it's plus tax and plus service charge. And next thing you know, you're spending 15 when you thought you were spending 10. So like, one of the great benefits to a virtual event, it can be much lower in cost. You can really spend as little to as much as you want to make it like this huge, massive production, or you can really just sit in front of your screen and do it on Zoom and broadcast it out to a Facebook group. So one of the cool parts about a virtual event is it's low cost to no cost to put on your virtual event. So if you want to launch something, you want to get an idea out there quickly, do it for a low cost test first by doing it as a virtual event. This is probably the last reason why I love virtual events now, is because it does a couple of things. Is for low cost, we can test an offer. We can put an offer out to the marketplace and see how it's going to land, see if we have the offer right, because we're going to get feedback through a virtual event before we go put it live in person. And so because we can do this, we can test the offer. The fascinating thing, not just for myself, but some of my friends who do virtual events. In fact, I have friends who did all live events who've now moved to completely all virtual events. In fact, they don't do any live events anymore. They'll do 3 5-day events that are all virtual. And one of the benefits to that is because, again, it's low cost, but the thing they found is that their sales conversions weren't any different. So think about that. If your cost is so much lower to do a virtual event, you can launch it quickly, you can test ideas, you can put your offers out there, and your sales conversions aren't any less percentage than they were in person, right? Because that's the conventional wisdom. That's the thing I thought. If I'm good at a room, let's say I close 20% of a room, as soon as I go to virtual, what if I only close 10? Well, the reality is I can actually close 10 and be just as profitable because I don't have the expense. But what if I close 20% like I do in person? Think about the massive amount of profit because I don't have the overhead to put on the live event, right? So these are some of the benefits of doing virtual events. Again, I was so not for it because I love the interaction with people in person that'll laugh at the jokes, that'll smile when you're there, that you feed off that energy when you're speaking, and you don't always have that in virtual events. There's a way to do it, but it's not always the same. And so this is a great way to do virtual events, right? To cut your cost, to get an idea out there and have the same conversion rates that are out there. So my challenge to you, go ahead and put in the comments, like when you're doing your next virtual event, put a link to it. I'd love to know when it is. I'd love to watch it. I'd love to be a part of it. Put your virtual event below, right? And if you know somebody that's thinking about, or they do a lot of in-person events and they're thinking about transitioning, go ahead and send this video to them. Like and subscribe if you love it, and stay tuned for the next one.